Today, we continue the conversation with a young executive who is poised to take a $1 billion company into its next iteration. Captaining his prestigious Arizona State University golf team, where he earned his business communications degree, he went on to do an intensive leadership development course at Harvard Business School last year. Erik Coover is currently the Chief Visionary Officer at Isagenix International, where he leads the company's fastest growing demographic, millennials. Earning Marketing Executive of the Year in 2015 by the American Business Awards, Erik is leading the company's aggressive sustainability initiatives with a goal of zero waste packaging by 2028. Married to his dynamo wife, I didn't know what other word to use for her, Peta Kelly, who was featured in Forbes magazine for Best 30 Under 30. She is blissed out as mother to Soul 3 and packs 5 months. She has wrangled Erik out of the US and then the UK and back to her home beaches of Perth, Australia, for the moment. Thanks, Erik, for speaking to our community of dreamers who listen intently on what it takes to live your dream and make a difference in the process. So thanks for being here. This is awesome.
Sarah, thanks so much for having me. Always appreciate the work that you do. And yeah, just honored to be on the podcast.
Woohoo! So look, Erik, you're making such a huge impact in the world amidst the large casting shadow of incredibly successful parents. So what did you dream about as a little boy, being exposed to so many opportunities, like I can imagine you were growing up with parents like yours?
Yeah, well, for me, when I first, ever since I was little, I was always into sports and, I played soccer growing up. I played basketball, baseball. I just kind of played everything. But the one sport that kind of really I started to fall in love with was actually golf. And literally from the age of 8 to 22 years old, for 6 to 8 hours a day, every single day I was out on the golf course. And that was kind of like my dream, was to become a professional golfer. And I kind of held that dream starting when I was 8 years old. And I literally used to, I didn't really have any lessons, but I used to just watch TV, and I used to kind of mimic in the mirror with like an imaginary golf club, the swings of some of the best golfers. And then I'd be out, like we had a net in our backyard that I just hit golf balls into just all day long. And I'd imitate different players, and I'd just like be out there having a blast. And literally like 6 to 8 hours would go by, and I just, my hands would be all calloused up and just blistering and bleeding. And I just always loved golf. And so that was kind of my dream growing up, and a dream that I pursued for a really long time. As you mentioned, I earned a golf scholarship to Arizona State, heading into university, and which is always recognized as one of the top programs, and just an awesome school, especially if you want to be a golfer. So that was kind of always my dream growing up, and I just kind of gave everything I had to it for a long time.
So I actually could totally visualize you out there, with that swing over and over and over and over again. What was it in your mind that allowed you, while other kids, pick up, maybe a club for a second and then, they want to do something else? What do you think had you as a kid go back over and over and over again? What is that work ethic or that consistency? Where does that come from?
I would say that definitely comes from, watching my parents. I think that they are like, my parents have always been, had tremendous drive. I think in particular my mom. She is like, the quickest way to have her do something is to get the feedback that she can't do it. and I think that is what has driven my mom for so long. And so both my parents have an exceptional work ethic. And I think that's, when I was growing up, it's not something you're really conscious of, but just obviously, when we're little, we learn by observing and watching, and, having 2 kids of my own, I know that full well. You see kind of like the great qualities in your kids. And it's like, oh yeah, that's me right there. And then you see like the not good qualities in yourself come out in your kids. You're like, oh my gosh, like that's totally me.
So I thought you were going to say, oh, that's totally my wife.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So yeah, I was definitely watching them. I think that, you know, they've had tremendous amounts of drive, and I think that's, and I loved golf. I just like, that's one of the things that just kept me out there for so long, is I just loved kind of, you know, golf's not a team sport. It's kind of like it's all on me. And so, and I think that I've always kind of had this chip on my shoulder, that I think because my parents have been very successful, I never wanted to be handed anything. I never wanted to, you know, kind of just and be looked at as somebody that inherited anything.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think I've held on to golf for so long. Is it was like, this is something that is like, I'm 100% responsible for the result, like that's happening, and this is totally my thing, and my success or lack of success is all on me. And so that I don't know, that just kind of like really drove me, and I just, like I said, I just loved it. And actually, when I decided that golf wasn't really going to be my path, was kind of my last year of university, when I really started to get burnt out and I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. So, but for a long time, I really did.
You're so good. It's like I'm telepathically telling you things and you're answering them, because I was going to ask about, how do you transition a dream when something has been your sole focus? You're the you know, you're voted by the players as the captain of your team at a prestigious organization. How do you transition this thing that is what you thought you were going to do? That was it. How do you shift that? And what do you think the burnout was about?
Well, that was a really tough thing for me to do, because you know, we latch onto our identity so much as humans. And for me, my whole life, my identity was golf. Like, it was like, and then you start to think like, well, who am I without this sport? Like, it's just been such a huge part of my life. And I think, honestly, I almost held on to golf for too long. I mean, I was so burnt out, and I was so just feeling like golf was a job for, you know, really the last year, 18 months I was playing it. But I held on to it because I was afraid of change. I was afraid to kind of I was afraid to kind of face myself without something that had been in my life for so long, because it was such a strong piece of my identity. So I think that, you know, it kind of got to the point where literally I felt like I kind of hit rock bottom in my golf psyche. It was like, you know, my game started really going downhill, and I just was starting to like dread going out on the golf course. And so that's where it was kind of like, all right, enough was enough. And I had to kind of just open myself to new possibilities. And really, I think in that moment, when I actually started to do that, I started to realize, man, like, there's just so much more to life, and like holding on to your identity can be so limiting. You know, and so that for me was, you know, holding on for golf for too long. But now I look back on it, it is probably the best decision I ever made. And now I actually, when I go play golf, and I wish I could play more, I enjoy it so much more now, because all that expectation is off my shoulders, and, you know, everything like that.
So that's really interesting. Thank you I love your honesty about, I had a chip on my shoulder about owning something and being fully mine. I'm relating to a lot of your experiences of identity and the things that we think matter in the early days. So walk me into how you go from, I'm going to do it, no one's going to give me a leg up, to walking into the doors of your parents' company. And I don't know, maybe you didn't see it like that. Maybe that's just my impression from the outside. So how do you do that? Like, do you have to suck it up, or are you kind of making mental transitions by this point where you can handle going into Isagenix?
Yeah, well, for me, it was like, my parents, the great thing about them is that they supported me through every phase of my life. Like, they were 100% behind me in pursuing golf. That was always, you know, they've just always been there to support, you know, so they've always been great about that. They never pushed Isagenix on me, or a different agenda and something like that. And I just hear so many stories of parents trying to push certain agendas on their kids, or they're trying to like live, you know, live through their kids and stuff like that. And so I'm so grateful that my parents didn't do that for me. They just kind of, you know, always were there for me. But it actually, when I fully decided to step into Isagenix, actually it was another person who kind of got to know me at one of our Isagenix events, and we just had a conversation. And basically he was working for the company, and he sent me an email a few days later, and he said, you know, hey, I just see a lot of potential in you. I think you could do great things, you know, in the company, and, you know, we could just do some really good things together. And it was kind of that third party validation that I needed, you know, from somebody that wasn't my parents, that just kind of saw potential in me. And from that moment, it was like, all right, like I'm doing this. I called my parents and I was like, you know, I really want to join everything you guys are doing. And I had some experience before that, actually working as a distributor within Isagenix. But I fully decided to join the corporate side of the company when this individual kind of saw this potential in me. So, but I really had the same mentality when I made that decision. It was like, I didn't want to I really knew that, look, people could easily look at me and say, oh, here comes the owner's son, here we go, you know, he's going to get the corner office, and, you know, he's just going to rise up the ranks, and he's some spoiled little rich kid and all that stuff. And that, like, really was in my mind. Like, I don't know what it's been. It's just always kind of in my mind. And I always, everything in my life, just really I never wanted to be handed anything. And I wanted to prove myself. And so I started, you know, in our customer service department, just listening to calls for a month. And I started literally with the most basic role in a cubicle, and just like made the decision to fully commit to Isagenix, but I was going to start at the bottom and didn't want to get handed anything, and just kind of prove my value, my worth, and know that I could contribute in my own unique way. And that was a thing that, you know, I put a lot of pressure on myself too, because my parents are amazing people. And I felt like I wrestled with this thing of I had to be like them, speak like them. And like, I knew that there was this expectation. And so I guess I just decided, hey, I'm going to contribute in my own unique way, and just kind of commit to the process, and just prove that I can make an impact.
So speaking of this unique way, I just want to go a little into the fact that someone saw what you were capable of, this third-party validation. How do you feel like your captaining skills, your sport captaining skills, started to show up in a business setting? How do you see that transferability of that skill?
Well, I think that especially in golf, I mean, you fail every day. I mean, it's like you become your worst, you know, I could go out and play an incredible round of golf, but my focus is literally on all the mistakes and, you know, how much better it could have been. And you're just like, the amount of times that you actually win in golf is so few. And so you're just kind of like, I think through like 15 plus years of dedicating your life to a sport, athletes were used to failure, like over and over. We're used to like kind of being, having to start out in a sport and kind of be a disaster. And, you know, just know that work ethic, practice, you know, you build skills and all that stuff, and you build, and you just become better and better and better and better. And you don't get as attached to failure, and you're not afraid of failing. Mm-hmm. And I think that has so served me, you know, throughout my whole Isagenix journey in business is, you know, when I commit to something, I commit one time. Like, I don't, like when I committed to golf, I made the decision, I'm going to commit one time to the sport. I want to be the best golfer in the world. You know, I put affirmations all over my room, like on my ceiling every morning when I woke up. It said #1 golfer in the country when I was going to school. Like that's what I wanted to do. And I was like, I committed one time for 15 years. I didn't have to like say, oh, this is something I'm going to do, you know, this month. And then I was out the next, I mean, this is my vision. And so with Isagenix, and so so when you have failure come your way, it's just like, cool, this is just a part of it. Like, I'm not very good at this, but I'm just committed to the process and getting better because I'm committed. So in Isagenix, it was kind of like, when I first started, like I was a disaster. Like I couldn't speak. Thinking about speaking in front of a group of people. I mean, I remember when I did like my first conference call, and there was like 10 people on, my heart was pounding out of my chest, and I'd rehearsed it like 50 times, a conference call, and this was like before Zoom and all that stuff. And so, but even though I was a disaster, it just, I didn't let me being a disaster and kind of failing get in the way of just improving and getting better. And so I think that is the single greatest weapon that I learned just by being an athlete, was just not afraid to just mess up and fail and be a disaster.
Thank you for saying that thing about repetition, not afraid to fail. That vision of you swinging the golf club is still with me when you were young, because my perception of you from the outside is innovative. When I think about you with millennials, inside of Isagenix, really being a beacon for attracting millennials, this generation. And I feel like you just seem to, the way it looks from the outside is, oh, he snaps his fingers and it's innovative. How does it feel for you? Do you think you're innovative? Do you think you get lucky? Or is it just because you keep swinging?
Yeah, I mean, that it's definitely because, I keep swinging and our team keeps swinging, as a company. I think that look, I look back on the last 3 years in our business, it's been one of the most challenging, adversity-filled seasons that I could ever remember. But I feel like because we kept swinging and because so many things started to happen, beneath the surface, that at the time, like anytime you face challenge and adversity, it sucks. Like it's just like in the moment, it sucks. I think about personal adversity, but then you look back on it 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, and it's like, that was the greatest, most important blessing I could have had in my life. And so that's kind of the season that we've been through. But we've never, as you said, we've never stopped swinging through the process. And now, we're kind of setting up this new evolution that we're about to go in the company. And I've never felt our team more aligned, more clear, and more focused than we are now. And it's because, it's a product of all of the messiness and just chaos and uncertainty and like just tough times that we've really had to go through.
Yeah.
Any company, just like any person, you're not going to go through a life cycle where it's just, year over year growth by 30-40% every single year. I mean, that's not life. And so just recognizing that, life is made up of different seasons, but just to kind of keep the big picture vision in mind and consistently casting a vision over and over and over again. Sometimes it's going to be messy. Sometimes it's going to feel incredible, but it's just all a part of the process.
Yeah, so cool. Isn't it cool that we've seen this thing about swinging? I love that you're using that. That's really cool. So sustainability, I feel that you taking on zero waste by 2028 is massive in an organization like as big as Isagenix. And I've loved your openness about it. I've loved how you take people along for the ride, because I feel like everybody knows they should say sustainability. However, actually doing it is, I'm quite loving the ride that you're taking us all on. So tell me what gives you the balls to go for that, and how do you keep swinging at that? Because it's no easy thing.
Yeah, well, I think that I think goals are a big thing. And what we did about 2 years ago is we set like a big goal that kind of scared the hell out of everybody. And we've set a goal within our company to have zero waste packaging by 2028. Now, like that, at the time, that was 10 years. So, we set that goal in 2018 and we gave ourselves 10 years. That might seem like a long time, or, for some people, trust me, for our internal team, like that doesn't seem like a long time. That seems like, because we knew we had a lot of improvements to make. And so the first part is just setting the goal. Now, I really hope that we get there. Like I'm counting on it that we're going to get there. But because we've set the goal, now the whole organization, kind of every decision that we're making is being filtered through this goal. And so, and the amount of progress that we're making because of it is what's really, really exciting. So by 2028, if, again, I'm hoping we accomplish it, you know, I'm sure we will, but even if we fell a little bit short, it's like, well, look at how far we've come.
Yeah.
And so because we've set that goal and we've kind of had the whole organization moving through it. Now, sustainability is you know, all it takes is like you to watch one documentary, and it's very, very easy for you to get just so frustrated on the impact that we're, you know, all having on the environment. And so, you know, we kind of set that goal, and we decided to, you know, tackle our biggest thing first, which was, you know, our shakes, which, you know, we you know, about 8 million a year. And so we transitioned all of those to 100% recycled material, and then you can recycle them again. So we essentially went from, like, you know, 8 million virgin plastic canisters being produced to essentially net zero. I mean, we went to 100% recycled material. And that was a huge, you know, it's a huge accomplishment. And we're continuing to make tons of improvements. But what we basically committed to, as you said, taking people along the journey in the process and just letting them know, like, everybody wants it overnight. Like, and I think that a lot of companies can learn that the more transparent you are, like, the better. And even though people want things overnight, we've kind of let people know, look, we wish we could have it overnight, but, you know, our products' safety and quality is, like, first and foremost for us. And anytime you tamper with packaging, you know, shelf life is involved. And, you know, we have to ship our product by boat, by air, by truck, and we have to test all those products to make sure that when we change the packaging, to make sure that they're not damaged and, you know, in transit, and that the shelf life is still good, they don't go rancid. And there's just so much that goes into it. And, you know, there's just not a whole lot of companies that can meet our quantities, because we're a large company. Now there's tons of new companies emerging and starting to scale, and it's so exciting. But that's why it just doesn't really happen overnight. We wish it could, but just so much progress has been made, and we've just committed that every single month we're going to have a new update, that an improvement that we're kind of talking about. So we've done a lot, like, over the last, you know.
The transparency that you bring is so educational. I'll just tell you, my perception of sustainability is righteousness. So like you said, you watch a documentary and then you're going to cast judgment across, you know, and having grown up as a very righteous person, I know this game. And so, you know, when we marry that to the planet, we have plenty of things that we want people to do. But what you're doing, I feel, is actually taking your goal and your statement and making it real. And like some of the things that you guys share, I think to myself, oh, I never thought of that. Didn't even know about that. It's just awesome. Like, and transparency, as you're speaking, I'm getting some of what you bring to the table. I feel, and I think your parents are like this as well, but as a company, you represent transparency, because I think it takes courage. A lot of people aren't transparent. So to be the ones that are, and to take all of it, meaning this is our truth, this is where we stand, and we're opening up. And sometimes you guys get slapped around for it, and yet you keep standing. It's such a powerful place to stand, was what I'm trying to say. So I'm just blown away by how your parents comport themselves. Is that even a word? Comportment. I grew up in French. I spoke French when I was young. So sometimes there's words that I say. I used to speak to my mom, and she couldn't speak French, and I would say the word and she's like, what? And I just never knew the English word, which I think that was one of them. But basically how they handle themselves, let's go with that, how they handle themselves in terms of not pushing you in the early days, how you came forward and how you're adding your flavor. But you grew up in network marketing. So did you ever resist network marketing? And how do you approach people that have a negative view of something that you've always seemingly had a positive impact? Because this is, I'm so curious about that. What's the feeling in your world around network marketing as a profession?
Yeah, well, I definitely resisted. I resisted for a long time. Because I was kind of a product of what I'd seen my parents go through in this profession of network marketing. I think at its core, when it's done right, network marketing can be, one of the most beautiful business models in the world when it's done right with integrity. I mean, it's an epic model when it's done right. Unfortunately, there's certain companies and stuff like that that don't really have the greatest intentions, and they're not really doing things the right way. And unfortunately, the good companies that are trying to do things the right way, they kind of get lumped in with some of the, ones that don't have good intentions. And that's why this industry can kind of come with a stigma to it. But before, Isagenix started, my parents were involved in several companies. My dad was consulting for other network marketing companies, and we actually we relocated our family 5 times in a 2.5 year span, to 5 different states around the US, because my dad would basically go consult for these companies. We'd be there for about 7 months, and he'd realize that, the ownership here just doesn't really get it. They're not about the people. Like, this isn't going to last. And so we'd have to relocate again. And then eventually he retired. My mom was a distributor in some of the other companies, and they had been, either the companies that she was with either went out of business, or one of them got shut down by the FTC, and so it was like they had a lot of baggage. They just had been through a lot in the industry, but they were still such believers in this profession. And so when they started Isagenix, it was kind of their vision to create a company that would be a home for people that they could really count on for generations to come, that was all about the people. And so that didn't have an exit strategy attached to it. And so, but you asked if I was resistant, because I had seen my parents go through all those experiences when they first started Isagenix. Like, I was 14 years old, and I used to literally bring home products from other companies and try to tick my parents off. Because in my mind, this was just another company, but we had relocated to Arizona, and this company wasn't going to work out. We were going to be here for 9 months, and then we were going to have to move again, because that's what we had done in the last 3 years. And so I was very, very skeptical. And as a result, I brought home products and, from other companies, did all that other stuff. So, sometimes family members can be the most skeptical. And, it took me 6 years before I really decided to say yes to Isagenix, and my parents own the company. And so I would say that, timing is so crucial for people. And what I would say to people that are kind of skeptical or, resistant, it's like, that's okay. Like, that's natural for people to be skeptical about certain things. There's so much stuff on the planet. People should be skeptical. Like, there's so much, like, there's so many people selling so many of these crazy things out there that, like, that's why there's so much skepticism. And so we don't want people to join Isagenix for hype or because everybody else is doing it. We want people to join if it feels really in alignment for them, and based on, like, real science and, like, evidence and time tested quality. And only if it's right for them. Like, Isagenix isn't for everybody. That's cool. Like, there's other network marketing companies that are doing great things in the world that, that are also a great stand for health and wellness and certain other things. And I think that that's the way we look at, kind of competition is, that's the way I want to look at competition, is the competition that we go to bat for every day is, like, people suffering around the world, through physical and financial pain, not being a part of a community that's empowering. I mean, we live in a very negative world if you turn on the news. And so any company that is, like, helping people improve the quality of their life, physically, financially, emotionally, if they're doing it in an ethical way with integrity, they're getting applause from Isagenix. So, like, and I think we need more companies, viewing competition that way.
You said this earlier. I was going to ask you about it with your parents, but you've just shown it in yourself, this non-attachment. Like, you just don't seem attached to people. For example, you said it's not for everyone. What gives you that openness and acceptance of where people are at in terms of timing, where I feel like sometimes, people get their heels dug in and they need it to be a certain way. Where does that come from? And I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm just giving you a compliment, but it's like this. Is that easy for you, or do you work on that? Do you get frustrated, or is it all, are you always this zen?
Well, I'm certainly not, you know, I have my moments, but I would say that like, it's very easy to get attached to, like certain outcomes and stuff like that. And trust me, like you post something on social media and you could have 10,000 positive comments, but one person that just like rips you to shreds. And where does your focus go? It goes on that one, that one person. And like you start thinking about, what did I do wrong? Like I go through that a lot. So like that, I'm certainly human, and that's so natural to go through stuff like that. But I just think, we're so different as people. We all come from different backgrounds and cultures. And I mean, having traveled all around the world, it's like, you see how, like, there's that great quote. I don't even know who said the quote, or I'm definitely paraphrasing it, but it's like one of the greatest mistakes that people can make is thinking that other people see the world exactly as they do. I mean, there's just so many different perspectives. And so, look,
That's beautiful.
like, as a company, we're going to be, preaching what we believe in and our values and like, what we stand for and all that stuff. And, to the best of our ability, we demonstrate the most integrity that we can. And it's going to attract all the right people, and all the right people are going to show up. It doesn't have to be everybody. So, yeah, I just think that, we're just so different as people. And, but I will say that, going back to the kind of the hateful comments, or I don't know, whatever. I mean, sometimes I use that as like fuel. I mean, I will say that we've been through a season in our company where we've certainly copped tons of different, opinions and our fair share of people trying to sabotage what we're doing. And honestly, sometimes I love going in and looking at that stuff because it motivates the hell out of me. Like that stuff can either like tear you down and demotivate you and knock you out of the game, or it can just like motivate the hell out of you and make you more clear, more focused than ever. And I think that's kind of also the product of being an athlete is like, I'll tell you that, like, I'm sure Nat and, so many of the different athletes, Michael Phelps, all these, gold medalist Olympians, the people that tell them they can't do it, that's what motivates them. It's like, I just watched that Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I was gonna quote Jordan there because I said to Nat, oh man, his driving force is I'll show you.
That's it.
Wasn't it funny? He was like, someone gets on his list. Oh, I'll show you.
I know.
And I said that to Nat. I was like, man, he's had that since he was a kid. And so, yeah, I'm hearing that in you. I'll show you. That's cool.
Totally. And I mean, in Jordan, it was like in that documentary, there was an instance where nothing even happened, but he made up in his head, like a player said something just so that he would go do it. Like, and that's another level.
That's what I thought. I was like, oh yeah, okay. That's not even a truth. That was, but man, to be able to back it up, like that's what I loved about Jordan and his trash talking was that he could deliver on the promise. He would tell a commentator the day before, watch this. This is what I'm going to do. And I thought, wow, like, we love that special for what he was doing, but also the conversation Nat and I were having amidst watching it was really amazing.
Totally. And I think some people, they like, as people, we want like the idea of everybody to be like so perfect. And like, if they're great, if they're the best in the world, then they have to be a nice person too. And they have to be like, like all this stuff. And then like, I think about some of the, best influential leaders like Steve Jobs and like Elon Musk and Michael Jordan, like these people, I hear people give him grief. Go, oh, Steve Jobs, he was such a pain in the ass to work for. Well, like he couldn't have possibly done what he did if he was like any other way than the way he was, And so like, it's just like, And like for Jordan to be that good, you have to be the way he was, you know, like you just can't be like this nice fluffy person, you know.
Yeah,
And
wasn't that part of the message? I think there's something bigger about that special that everybody needs to grasp. I love
right.
when he said, everybody wants me to be the nice guy, but man, they like the win. They like the championship, because that kind of standard, of course, is like a contrast. It grits at you. And yeah, that was amazing, I thought, to bring the real person. You know, Nat was telling me something about Walt Disney, that he
Yeah.
was full on, you know, and all we think about is like Mickey Mouse and happy. But to make a vision like that, where everybody thought he was crazy, to bring that to life, I don't know. I think you have to have some gusto, and not everybody is going to find that rainbows and sunshine. So,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like, that's right. Yeah. And, you know, I brought up Steve Jobs, and like a lot of, you know, these movies and stuff like that, they go into their family lives and how, you know, they were a struggle and stuff. And it's like, well, no kidding. I mean, the guy was like, you know, working 20 hours a day for, you know, it's like, he was so committed to like pushing humanity and creating this new, you know, like, we just can't, we set too big of expectations on people, you know, and instead of honoring what such gifts they are to the world, you know. And,
absolutely.
you know.
So, Chief Visionary Officer, you are in this position as, you know, in this global international company. What's your vision? This is our tie-up. We're going from Michael Jordan. So let's talk about your championship. What's your vision for the state of health and well-being in the world today? Just a small question to end it.
Well, I think that obviously, you know, the world is going through a pandemic right now. It's crazy what's happening. And, you know, if there's one thing that everybody should learn through all this, it's that, you know, we've got to look after ourselves. We got to look after our health. We got to put our health at the forefront of everything. Because if we don't have our health, then ultimately we can't be our best for, you know, our families, our communities. We just, you know, you can have all the money, everything in the world, but if you don't have your health, you don't got squat. And so, but I think coming at health from a more like obviously preventative and holistic sense, instead of trying to put all these band-aids on things. And it's like, you know, we're in this world of like social distancing and all this stuff. Like you see all this like reactionary stuff being done, instead of like, why aren't we talking about like how to like make people healthier, like in boosting their immune systems and like just being healthier people, so that, you know, our immunity and everything like that can better battle what there is in the world. I mean, I just don't know what we expect. Are we just going to all be wrapped in saran wrap for the rest of our lives? And I mean, it's like, you know, our health is first and foremost everything. You know, one of the biggest companies in the world are drug companies. You know, people, you know, people pushing prescription drugs and, you know, band-aids on certain things. And instead of looking at like, what is the actual core issue of why you're unhealthy? And let's like go to work to fix that. And I love, like, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be eating foods. I freaking love food. Like food is like, you know, life. It is. And I love a good, incredible meal. But I just think people need a foundation for their health that they can really count on, that they can really stay consistent with. And I think that the best wellness program is one that you can be consistent with. And in order to be consistent, it's got to be affordable. It's got to be convenient. It's got to taste good. So that's kind of what we're trying to do as a company, is just educate people around nourishing themselves and their bodies, and looking after themselves so they can be better people for their families and communities.
Wow, you're awesome. Gosh, you've said so many things that Nat and I talk about in our home. I don't know if you felt this, but, you know, what do we tell our kids? I'm so conscientious around this, that there's a situation that we've got, and what messages are we actually giving our kids around, I'm just debating of how, you know, how open to get around this. But, you know, Jordan says to me, so when can we hug again? Not us and our family, but, you know, her friends. And also, when can I share my water bottle? And I said, why do you want to share your water bottle? And she's like, because sharing is caring. And I thought, you know, they have this message, sharing is caring, and then, but don't share that, and don't touch that, and don't hug that. Yeah. So these kind of messages, underlying and confusing, because to be honest, they actually don't make sense. So thank you for addressing that. I've always felt like that, you know, over the past 7 years, Nat and I having this kind of nutrition in our body was what gives us freedom, what gives us freedom around food, what gives us freedom in the world. When all my friends cancel the play dates because they're nervous around their kids being sick, I never cancel a play date. Why would I? I just, yeah, it's just a whole different view of the world. So thank you for expressing yours. I think you are, yeah, it's really beautiful. I feel really blessed that we get to be a part of your journey, and thank you for doing this and speaking to our community.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me on. I just so love you and Nat and everything you guys represent, and little Jordan, you know, just grateful to be on the journey with you.
Mwah.